Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back, and today we're going to do One Piece chapter 1065 review. Let's get into it. So the title of this chapter, The Six Faces of Vegapunk. Alright, we start off the chapter with Zoro and Brook being like, yo, there's a reason we stayed behind. This is a government island, and if anyone gets caught, who is going to save us, right? So Zoro's like, I'm here for backup. Brook's like, yo, I'm here for the same reason as you, right? Zoro and Brook are very not trusting of Vegapunk, and I think for good reason. So we also see that Caribou is still with them, and Caribou is just begging them to hopefully drop him off at the next island, and Zoro just thanks him for saving Luffy, and he's just like, yo, bye-bye. You're gonna be left on this government island, right? And Caribou really doesn't want to get off here. I think he knows that he'll get captured if he's left there, obviously. The real question is who is Caribou trying to feed this information to, and why has he been following these Straw Hats the entire time, right? So that is a big question. So I wonder who Caribou is gonna end up reporting to at the end of the day. So we go back with the crew as they're entering the lab, and Lilith quickly mentions here that the whole island actually runs on fire. So this instantly brought vibes of Sun God Nika, Flame Emperor, Sabo, right? I also got a flashback to remember when Enel was powering the whole moon civilization with his Goro Goro no Mi, and that was another elemental based power source that we saw, right? So potentially maybe Sabo could actually run this whole island by himself, and maybe previously this island was run by the Mera Mera no Mi user, right? And maybe this was powered by that user this whole time. And I wonder if potentially if they can replicate like a Logia fruit, which hasn't been shown yet, right? So they've only been able to replicate like a mythical Zoan with Momo, and we later see that they're able to replicate a Paramecia, but they haven't been able to replicate a Logia yet, at least from what we've been seeing. So I wonder if they could replicate a Logia user and then have that user power this whole island by himself. And Lilith also mentions like an eternal flame and maybe potentially creating her own sun. And again, it's bringing back Sun God Nika vibes, again, Flame Emperor vibes. So I don't know what they have to do in this relation, but I guess we'll find out later. And something cool that we see as they're entering the lab is the door actually just lets them right through, and then when they turn around to touch the door is actually still solid metal. And Lilith says not to trust their eyes, it might be an illusion. The interesting part is that, okay, so there's holograms here on Egghead Island, there's doors that you can walk through but then are solid, right? So Oda is really testing what we believe to be our normal reality. We're again seeing like the differences between what's real and what's fake, right? What's real and what's imaginary. Continuing on, the crew ends up running into Seraphim Jinbei, and they're all confused since this looks like Jinbei but a younger version of him that has white hair and black wings, and clearly they realize that he's not the same Jinbei that obviously they're used to. And Frankie even points out that he's probably a pacifista, right? So he noticed right away, and as he noticed that, the Seraphim ends up shooting a beam at them. And the coolest part about this is that this Jinbei has the Swim fruit, right, from Senior Pink. Obviously this is genius by Oda, because obviously giving a fishman this Swim fruit allows them to be super effective literally anywhere, right? So they can swim around, they can use any material that they want as kind of projectiles. And we saw the Seraphim Jinbei kind of like pick up, I guess, like a piece of the floor, and it was still liquid. So my question is like, once he throws that at someone, does that just instantly become solid, and that's what becomes dangerous about this ability? Or does it stay liquid the whole time like water as he's using the ability, and then once it returns to the ground it turns back into the ground, something like this? So like we need some clarification on how this would actually work if he's using these like liquid floor as a projectile, basically. So another question that this brings up now is that, do the rest of the Seraphims have Devil Fruit abilities, and are these replicated Devil Fruit abilities, right? So did the world government have to go out and kill freaking Senior Pink to get this Swim fruit, or did they just replicate it? How many others of the Seraphims have these Devil Fruit abilities, right? So last time we saw the Boa Hancock Seraphim, it didn't look like she had any special abilities, and the same with the Mihawk Seraphim, right? So he did just have like Mihawk's attack prowess, as he was able to cut that mountain basically in half and kind of give Blackbeard some, you know, some questioning thoughts about how powerful that Seraphim is. So to just put this out there, I'm guessing that Vegapunk did figure out out how to replicate a paramecia fruit, and that's why this Jinbei has this swim sim fruit. So as the crew keeps fighting Jinbei, we get introduced to the other Vegapunks. So the first Vegapunk we see is Vegapunk Edison, and this is the flair personality of Vegapunk. And he mentions that the Seraphim Jinbei is not ready for the laser test yet, which is funny. It's like, why would you put them against like a Yonko crew if he's not ready to be tested yet, right? Like, that's hilarious that they would do something like this. And I thought a really funny part is when this Edison Vegapunk has a eureka moment and you just see the light bulb, and I was like, hey, that's a nice callback. The next Vegapunk we see is the Pythagoras Vegapunk, which is wisdom. And this Vegapunk also looks like a robot along with the Edison Vegapunk, so these both look like robots. And Pythagoras was just glad to be getting this amazing data. He's just like, yo, when do you get the chance to test your robot on a freaking Yonko crew? And the last Vegapunk we meet is Vegapunk York, Desire. So the coolest part about York's ability is that she can eat for the other Vegapunks, as well as she can kind of go to the bathroom for you as well, right? So whenever the other Vegapunks need this kind of action to be performed, she can go ahead and perform that action for them. And so basically she's fulfilling all their desires, where they can focus on like the more important scientific shit, basically, right? So they can focus on actually creating these inventions, working all the time, whereas York just ends up doing all the eating and all that stuff. So I think that was a pretty sick ability for, like, you know, someone to just kind of do all that stuff for you, and you can kind of focus on what you actually want to do with your life. And something interesting here that Pythagoras mentions about the Seraphim is that they're able to develop attack patterns based on their lineage, right? So basically, they can store recollections and capabilities inside of the lineage, and basically that clone can replicate those abilities, right? And kind of remember how to perform these certain techniques. And another thing Pythagoras was talking about is being able to accelerate the growth of these Seraphim. So clearly these Seraphim are still children. Most of them are still children except for that Kuma Seraphim that we saw earlier. They're basically powered by some sort of green blood, and maybe this is where they're getting these special abilities, or maybe it's like the source of their lineage through this green blood. So I wonder what this green blood even means, right? So we're obviously going to find out later. Maybe it has something to do with like these devil fruits, has something to do with, you know, their internal will, the passing on of their will. And finally, we meet our boy Shaka Vegapunk 01. Shaka is very smart. He ends up locking the Straw Hat's shoes to the floor to talk to them, and he's just like, yo, I'm not underestimating you Straw Hats. I know how strong you are, right? So he's not screwing around. Shaka Vegapunk brings the swagger. He's just like, yo, Seraphim, cool down. We're pausing this fight for right now. You know, he's got the swag, and his design is amazing. Clearly inspired by Daft Punk, but like, you know, the coat looks sick, the helmet looks sick. I wonder how he actually looks underneath the helmet, or maybe there is no one underneath the helmet and this is also a robot, right? So maybe there still is an original Vegapunk body, but it seems like this 01 is the main leader. And so as Shaka and the crew are still talking, Frankie brings up that, yo, this island is awesome. It's a crazy futuristic island with so much cool futuristic technology, and it's a way ahead of anything in the One Piece world, right? And Shaka actually says that the contrary is true, and this island is actually an island of the past. And Shaka goes on to say that there was once a highly advanced kingdom, not unlike Egghead when it comes to technology, a civilization from 900 years ago, right? So this was clearly a civilization from the Void Century and got lost into time. Right as Shaka is saying that, we also see Luffy, Jinbei, and Bonnie pull up on this giant mech suit that looks like oars, right? So it looks like a member of the Giants, but it's also like this mech robot, so it might be like this mech hybrid that we've been seeing. It just brings so many questions here, right? So is it a part of the giant race? Is it based on the giant race? Is it a robot that was put against the giant race trying to fight them and take them out? And so maybe this is all related to kind of what happened early on in the Void Century, and maybe this was the party that ended up defeating the Giants, and then that's what overthrew the world order at the time. time. So there's tons of questions here. So one of the biggest questions that this brought up is, why did none of this technology proliferate to the rest of the One Piece world, right? So why did the world government hold back this technology from everyone else? I wanted to kind of come up with a real world comparison to what this might be. And the only comparison I could think of was internet censorship, right? So why would you want to censor your citizen? So some of the things I could come up with here are: 1, you want to maintain national security; 2, you want to maintain political stability; and 3, you want to impose traditional social values. And this kind of clears up your thoughts right away, or at least it did mine, where obviously with political stability, they don't want any of this technology getting into the hands of the pirates, right? So that's why they don't want these ancient weapons getting in the hands of these pirates, because obviously you could use an ancient weapon to overthrow the government. You could use this crazy technology on Egghead Island to potentially overthrow the government, right? So they want this political stability where they have majority control on basically the citizens of the entire world. And obviously the next part is imposing the traditional social values, and this is basically maintaining the hierarchy of the kingdoms and the celestial dragons, right? So basically they want to maintain that the celestial dragons are at the top and you're going to respect the celestial dragons no matter what. And so maintaining these social values is what's most important to them, right? So they're preventing anyone from getting their hands on this technology from 1,000 years ago. And I think one of the most glaring examples of this is why are there no planes in all of One Piece? And I think this is pretty obvious. So if we look at what happened in Lulusia, we see those 16 beams coming down to Lulusia and basically destroying that entire island. Obviously, that was some sort of ancient weapon or some sort of weapon in general where it was flying above that island, right? And obviously we didn't see it, but it must be some kind of flying machine, right? So we literally never see another plane in One Piece except for our guy Buffalo, and Buffalo literally just flies around like a plane, right? We never really see a plane. And the only other flying thing that we see is NL's ship, right, from Skypiea, and he basically takes his ship to the moon, right? And so we clearly see why the world government would want to suppress any planes or any type of flying vehicles in One Piece, because obviously potentially that could lead to people finding out the deeper secrets of the world and then again going against the government and then potentially overthrowing the government. But basically all this chapter did was bring way more questions, and I hope a lot of these questions are answered in the future. That's basically all I got. Let me know what you guys thought in the comments down below, and I'll talk to you guys later. Peace.